Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions absolutely killed it this draft season. They added talent at every single selection in the NFL draft with value, with talent, and they turned an already Super Bowl contender into an even stronger one. And today, and over the next few weeks, we're going to take a look at this draft class in depth, player by player, pick by pick, even going into undrafted rookie free agency, and take a look at how this team has changed in the offseason and why they're gearing up for another run at the Lombardi Trophy. And starting it all off with the player that kicked off the NFL draft, we're going to take a look at Ohio State's Tyleik Williams, a player that led the Buckeyes to their 2024 National Championship trophy and was a big part of that Ohio State defense on the interior. Sitting at 6'3", 330 pounds, he is the ideal size for a defensive tackle in the NFL. Profiles very similarly to Alim McNeill, who, as we all know as Lions fans, is one of the best defensive tackles in all of football. Played 4 years at Ohio State, leading him to be the 28th overall pick in this most recent draft class, and joining the Detroit Lions as their most recent first-round selection. Now, throughout his time at Ohio State, Tyleik Williams had a really solid career. 136 tackles, 28 TFLs, 11.5 sacks, 10 passes defended, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery that he returned for his first and only career touchdown, as well as an 88.6 Pro Football Focus run defending grade. That PFF grade ranked him as the 6th best run stopper in all of college football on the defensive line for both defensive tackles and defensive ends, meaning he is arguably the best pure run stopper in the entirety of the 2025 draft class. To cap off his career at Ohio State, his 2024 campaign was pretty good. National championship on his resume with 46 tackles, 8 TFLs, and 2.5 sacks. And while statistically that may not jump off the page at you, he was a disruptor. He is a chaos creator in the middle. And again, he's going to be a player that probably never tops 8-10 sacks in a season. He's never going to be a player that puts up elite numbers on the stat sheet, but he's a player that every time you turn on the film, every time you look on the field, you're going to see Tyleik Williams, and you're going to see him making plays. You're going to see him being disruptive, and he is a player that made Jack Sawyer better. He's a player that made JT Tuimoloau out better. He's a player that really fortified the middle of that Ohio State defense, shored up their rushing defense, made their pass rush significantly better, and overall was a big part of that Ohio State defensive line. The Ohio State D-line coach came out and said that Tyleik Williams has one of the most unique blends of traits and tools that he has ever had the luxury of working with, comparing him to the great Hall of Famer of Aaron Donald. And again, he said he didn't want to put pressure on the kid to be Aaron Donald, but he said he has that type of upside and that type of a skill set. He is a super disruptive player. And again, even if the stats don't necessarily show it, he is a player that will impact the game from both a pass rushing standpoint and a run defending standpoint. If you want to take a look at some of the other players around him in the NFL draft as a pass rusher, Tyleik Williams had better pass rushing statistics throughout his entire career, more pressures and more sacks than a guy like Shamar Stewart, who was an edge rusher from Texas A&M and went at 19th overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. So for anybody that's upset that the edge rushing position was not addressed early in the draft, they got a better option than one of the top 20 players selected. The edge rushing position was getting a little bit thin, and Tyleik Williams is right up there with some of the most productive first-round pass rushers that the NFL draft had to offer. Is he an Abdul-Carter? Absolutely not. But he is a very strong and very solid interior defensive line member who will help Aiden Hutchinson, who will help Alim McNeill, who will help DJ Reader and Al-Qudain Muhammad and Marcus Davenport. He will make the defensive line far more dangerous than it was a season ago, even though last season they were quite dangerous as a defensive line. Taking a look at some of the strengths and weaknesses of his game, there are a lot of strengths, and there's a lot of reasons to be excited. First off, his powerful base and strong lower body. He plants himself like a tree. He roots himself into the ground and does not move from the middle. His ability to stack and shed blocks at a really high, consistent level is exactly why Brad Holmes selected him and exactly why he's such a good run defender. He doesn't get moved off his spot. He is so incredibly clean and sound with where he needs to be, and he plays his role and responsibility perfectly 9 times out of 10, and the 10th time may not be perfect, but it's still pretty darn good. He is a player that you can trust on every single down to play his assignment, to play his gap, to play his role, and be a sound defensive player. And while that may sound like a boring thing to be a strength, those are the things that win you Super Bowls. Those are the things that are going to win you playoff games. They are going to win you Super Bowls, and they are going to win you a lot of football games. Because why the flashy pass rushers and, the players that knife through the offensive line for a big hit every once in a while look awesome on tape and they look awesome on a highlight reel. What really makes you a great NFL player is your consistency every single snap, and that is what Tyleik Williams brings. He has quick hands, he has quick feet, he's a really good athlete, and again, statistically, he may not be up there with some of the top defensive tackles year in and year out. In fact, I would go as far as to say there's probably going to be 3, if not 4 defensive tackles in this class to outproduce a guy like Tyleik Williams, but I'm not sure that on the field watching them, the Lions would give up Tyleik Williams for any, if not all, of those players. Now, there are a couple of things to keep in mind with his weakness. I think pass rushing upside is maybe a little bit lacking, right? There are some concerns, much like a Lee McNeil, where he's probably never going to be a Chris Jones. He's probably never going to be an Aaron Donald. He's never going to put up 10, 12, 15, 20 sacks in a season, but that's okay. You don't draft a player like Tyleik Williams to put up 20 sacks in the season. You draft him to take up space in the middle, to defend the run like a brick wall, and really to just be a solid player for your team. I think Tyleik Williams is a potential Pro Bowl type of talent, a player that will immediately slot in for the Detroit Lions and be a high upside player, a great floor, and really just all around a really, really solid pick. He does have shorter arms. They're on the shorter side, but nothing to be super concerned about, which of course does limit his pass rushing upside. But again, this is a player that compares very similarly to a Lee McNeil. Maybe not the biggest guy, maybe not the heaviest guy, but a player with a great motor, a player that plays his position really well every single play and every single snap. And once Lee McNeil gets back, this is going to be one of the best defensive tackle trios in all of football. I don't know what the rotation is going to look like. I would imagine on pass rushing downs, it's going to be a Lee McNeil and Tyleik Williams. On run defending downs, it's going to be DJ Reader and probably a Lee McNeil. But they have the opportunity to rotate these guys at such a high and frequent level without losing any kind of play style or any kind of play level that they are going to turn into one of the best defensive lines in football. For all the people upset that they didn't draft an edge rusher, this pick is just as impactful as an edge rusher. This will make Aiden Hutchinson's job easier. This will make Ali McNeil's job easier. This will make DJ Reader's job easier and Marcus Davenport's job easier and Al-Quadin Muhammad's job easier. This is an impactful player on the defensive line, and anybody that thinks it's not needs to go watch more film, because he is a fantastic interior player and maybe the most technically sound defensive lineman of them all. The Detroit Lions IDL currently stands as so. Tyleik Williams will likely slide in as the starter in absence of Lee McNeil, with DJ Reader right alongside him. Rotations with healthy amounts of Roy Lopez, Levi Onwuzurike, and Mekhi Wingo will, of course, be part of the early rotation in the season. And then when Lee McNeil gets back, they're going to just simply take over the NFL. I don't think there will ever be a 100-yard rusher with these 3 players on the defensive line. They could go, a 5 front with 3 defensive tackles and 2 edge rushers. And I don't think there's going to be a single team that runs the football on the Detroit Lions next year. That is how they build their team, and they like to do it that way. And I think Brad Holmes constructed his team perfectly in order to stop the run, make teams one-dimensional, and then trust your secondary, right? Trust Kirby Joseph to get takeaways. Trust Brian Branch to get takeaways. Trust DJ Reed and Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw and all of these good secondary members that you've brought in to go take the football away. Trust your front 7 to stop the run and get to the quarterback, and it's a recipe for success. I think the Lions have the talent to do so, and now it's going to come down to health and executing on a play-in and play-out basis. The overall grade for this draft pick that I have, immediately I said it was a B+. I think I upped it to an A-. I think it was the second largest position of need behind the edge rusher position. This is going to help out both Aiden Hutchinson and the rest of the defensive line, as well as I think really being the best player available for the fit that the Lions wanted. An elite run stopper, a chaotic pass rusher, somebody that will every single down be able to affect the game, whether it be getting to the running back, getting to the quarterback, just disrupting anything and everything inside that pocket. That is where Tyleik Williams is going to thrive. And I think he is going to make Aiden Hutchinson a better player. I think he's going to make Lee McNeil a better football player. And he is going to be a long-term solution to what the Detroit Lions had and need for next season. But with all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. That is my take on Tyleik Williams. I think it is a phenomenal pick. The only reason it's not an A or an A+ is because, again, I think edge rusher was a bigger position of need, and there was players like Mike Green on the board, but that should not take away from the type of player player and the caliber of player that the Detroit Lions are getting in Tyleik Williams. They are getting a top 35, 40 player in the class. They are getting the best run stopper in the class, a day one contributor, and a player that will make them better for a playoff run. So with that being said, let me know down in the comments below your personal grades on the pick and what player you want to see about next. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.